Compromise of 1850. So Compromise of 1850 all stems from California. By 1850, California is ready to become a state. And you might ask, well, why is California ready to be a state? It's furthest west. Why did so many people move out there so quickly? And the answer is the gold rush. The gold rush happened in 1849. So thousands, if not tens of thousands of people have moved to California from all over the United States and from all over the world for that matter. So California is ready to move towards statehood. So there ended up being four parts of this, and I'll discuss this. Some were victories for the North, some were victories for the South. The first thing that happens is California, everyone agrees, is going to enter as a free state. So when we see that right away, we think, well, the North likes this. But after all, it's a compromise, so the South is going to get some things that benefit them. And the second thing benefits them the most, and that's the fugitive slave law. There are two parts to this. I'll get to the two parts of the fugitive slave law in just a second. But for now, this was a huge Southern victory. Southerners loved the fugitive slave law. Northerners hated it. Third part of the compromise was slaves could no longer be bought and sold in Washington, D.C. So this one, I would say this one is maybe neutral towards the North and the South. It only affects one place, Washington, D.C., which is a city, so it's not a big place. It's safe to say there weren't many slaves living there to begin with. And it says they can't be bought and sold there. So technically, you could still own slaves in Washington, D.C. You just had to buy them in another place, but you could bring them into the city. The last one is the territories of Utah and New Mexico were given the right to popular sovereignty. And I'll show you on the map in just a second. Remember, popular sovereignty, that is when people in a territory or a state, they get to vote on whether they want slaves or not. So the easiest way for me to explain this one is to show you on the map. So our map has changed. Our maps are changing a lot as we talk about different events. So what we do know, California is going to be a free state. And you can see the United States is almost fully intact. We have all the land that we have today. And we have states mainly in the east, and we have territories because not many people have moved out here. Utah and New Mexico. So that was the fourth part. Utah and New Mexico are going to be decided by popular sovereignty. So the people in New Mexico and the people in Utah, they're going to vote on whether they want slaves or not. So is this a northern or a southern victory? In theory, I think it's probably a little bit more of a northern victory. And the reason why I say that is if we look at this, Utah and New Mexico, there's probably never going to be a lot of slaves out here. And the reason why is with slavery, we always connect slavery and farming. And if you understand the geography of these two territories, these aren't great places to farm. So even if they vote yes for slavery, and I think Utah did, I'm not sure about New Mexico. Well, it says open to slavery. So I assume with that, then both of them voted yes for it. We're never going to see a large amount of slaves living out there. Now let's go back to the fugitive slave law. This was the second one. This was the most controversial part. Northerners absolutely hated this, and there were two parts of this. Part number one stated, any African American accused of being a runaway or a fugitive slave could be put into slavery. They didn't get any sort of hearing or trial. So what this means in theory, I'm not suggesting this happened often, but in theory, you could be a free African American living in, let's say, New York. And let's say you've been free your entire life. What this means is now a Southerner technically could come up to New York, claim that you are their runaway slave, and you could be taken to the South and put in slavery. I don't think this happened a lot. It was probably really, really rare. But Northerners were absolutely upset that it could happen, that a free person could be put into slavery. The second part stated all Northerners were required by law to help catch runaway slaves. So if you're, again, living in New York, Pennsylvania, or Massachusetts, it's your legal duty now to help catch runaway slaves. So if you had information about a slave that was hiding out near you, legally you are now responsible to turn that information into authorities. Or if you're a participant in the Underground Railroad and you're helping runaway slaves, you're breaking that law.